Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited. We are focusing every one of our February programs on AI. It is the subject that everybody's talking about. Everybody's scared. Everybody's excited. Everybody's very confused. My guest, oh my gosh, this person I had to have as the first person. I know her we've never met in person, but I feel like I know her in real life because we are friends. We are part of several different groups together. And more importantly, she is my go-to AI person. When I have AI questions, I go to her. I know that she is going to provide the best information. So that's why I really wanted her to kick this off for the month. And so please join me in welcoming Cristina DiGiacomo to our program today. Welcome, Cristina. How are you?
I'm good, Deb. Hello. And hi, everyone out there.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell folks just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So Cristina DiGiacomo is the Chief AI Philosophy Officer of the C-Suite Network Technology Council, blending her expertise in philosophy and generative AI to help business leaders and coaches navigate the transformative potential of AI. With 14 years of philosophical study and certifications in ChatGPT and Generative AI, Cristina brings a unique perspective to integrating AI with wisdom and human values. As the founder of Everyday Philosophy, she delivers workshops, masterminds, and retreats that connect timeless philosophical principles with AI applications for strategic growth and leadership. Cristina is also an advisor and chief philosophy officer for Loving is AI. She holds a Master of Science in Organizational Change Management, is a #1 best-selling author for her book, Wise Up at Work. She is a 2 times New York Times Publishers Award winner and a Canne Cyber Lion Award shortlist winner. So again, please join me in welcoming Cristina DiGiacomo to our program today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. Deb, I've known you for years.
I know.
Right? I know. Yeah. And it's just been so fun, having you in our, AI mastermind group and just watching you really devour
it's so
AI as a category, and just really lean in to different tools and seeing all the possibilities, not only for you and your work, but also the category that you're in terms of cancer advocacy. And so it's just been a lot. You're probably like the most fun student because it's just so fun to watch you get very excited.
Well, and
AI.
Thank you so much. And the reason I get excited about AI, because it is scary, it is intimidating. It's, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know where to go. But you help make it so much easier to understand. And so that was actually why I thought, ooh, we should do a whole month on this. But that's really why I thought you have to be our first guest. So, tell us how it is that you decided that, at least for now, this is your passion in life. And then tell us a little bit more of, obviously, about the philosophy part.
Yeah, sure. I think we have to go back to when I was, I think, 8 or 9 years old. There was it was like a made for television movie, I think. It was just one of those like Star Wars knockoff kind of movies. It was a movie called The Black Hole. And it was about this space crew that was kind of like approaching this black hole, and it, it was like this, they were in a lot of danger. And there was a character in the film that was this very sweet, helpful robot. And at the climactic scene, sorry,
you're good.
that was my doorbell, of course. Gosh, sorry about that if you heard that. So there's this really climactic.
Keep going.
All right. So there's this, the climactic scene where the spaceship is really right there with the black hole, and it's getting torn apart, and the black hole is sucking the spaceship in. The little robot gets sucked into the black hole.
Oh no.
And I lost it. Like completely lost it.
Oh.
I just started crying and crying. I didn't care about the people.
Right.
I cared about the robot. And so I bring up that story to, just say that I've always had this connection or this affinity for technology and the human technology interaction. And I've always had this thing where with AI and robots, where I felt that there's something there, right? So, but it was just this sort of personal, I just looked at it as this personal quirk.
Right. It's fun.
Right? Like just being a weird nerd, right? And when OpenAI released ChatGPT, it was the first time that I actually was able to work with AI and interact with it. Most of the past, first of all, AI has been around since the 60s.
Right. Yeah. Folks, we've been using it all the time. Just, Siri, all of those various things.
Right. So there's been iterations of it. The more commercial, like predictive AI, like your Pinterest and your Netflix giving you recommendations.
Right. Amazon saying, hey, you bought that, you'll like this.
Right. That was precursor to what we are witnessing now. But also interactions with AI were usually kept in the academic community.
Right.
Or in the development community at high tech organizations. So I didn't have access to that.
Right.
But ChatGPT was really the first time I had access to AI, and it just I just came to life, really. I loved it, and it just sort of reignited this passion that I had about science fiction and robots and technology and so on. And I just was like, I really want to immerse myself in this. Now, so there's that, but I also have a philosophy background.
Right. Which is kind of the opposite almost.
Interesting. So why do you think it's an opposite?
Well, and I guess maybe it's more because I'm thinking of the philosophers, right? The great philosophers, Aristotle, Socrates, all of those. And the way they thought about the world, and obviously, I mean, all that carried forward, but I see them as being deep thinkers, right? And AI and technology in general, a lot of times is this fast. Let's, and so I love that you combine it, because that I think is what, so many people are afraid of AI, but when you show them, no, look at how we can combine philosophy. That's what is so exciting about it.
Yeah. So I love that you brought that up. I think Plato and Socrates and Aristotle would be fascinated
Oh,
by
they'd
AI.
love it. Mhm.
They would, are you
Mhm.
kidding? We wouldn't be able to get Socrates away from
Right.
the
Oh,
computer.
you talk about
Like,
an early
he
adopter.
would just be
Yeah.
like, go,
Mhm.
just like, leave me alone.
Mhm.
Right.
He'd go down every rabbit
Oh
hole.
my gosh. He'd be, forget it. He would just be like, just stick
Mhm.
me, just bring me food,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Um, the interesting thing is that I look at this serious technological
Mhm.
disruption. I
Mhm.
mean,
Right.
this is major.
Mhm.
This isn't like a little blip
Mhm.
where the, cassette Walkman turned
Mhm.
into the CD
Mhm.
Walkman.
Right. That was
Okay.
cool, but
We're
Mhm.
talking about a disruption like the printing press,
Right. Mhm.
like the automobile,
Mhm.
the computer,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
internet.
Right.
Um, they had those kinds of disruptions too in
Mhm.
ancient times.
Mhm.
They just happened to be a bit different.
Mhm.
And so these thinkers still had to came up with these philosophies and these ideas
Mhm.
with the intention that they last for a really long
Mhm.
time,
Right.
regardless of
Mhm.
our, regardless of the
Mhm.
circumstances.
Mhm.
But they also came up with them in spite of plagues, war,
Right. Mhm. Mhm.
barbarians at the gate,
Mhm.
corruption,
Mhm.
people who were out to get them. They were
Mhm.
constantly under threat
Mhm.
of like exile or death.
Right.
Like,
Poison. Yeah. Mhm.
right. So they would look at AI as like no big whoop,
Mhm.
to be
Yeah.
honest.
They would
Like,
think kill.
yeah, they would not. Yeah, they're like, what? A thing that it
Mhm.
talks to you and tells you like how to
Yeah.
live your life.
Mhm.
Great,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
they would think that AI made their job easier,
Right.
but they
Mhm.
also would caution us
Mhm.
on over reliance of
Mhm.
AI,
Mhm.
where we lose the ability to think for
Mhm.
ourselves.
Mhm. Right.
So there were these, a
Mhm.
lot of their ideas are so relevant
Mhm.
to today.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where I'm coming in
Mhm.
at this intersection between philosophy and AI,
Mhm.
which is what are the timeless ideas that we've had for
Mhm.
2000
Mhm.
years or more,
Mhm.
and what are the ideas that apply to not only the world that we live in now with
Mhm.
AI, but AI itself
Mhm.
and how it itself is evolving,
Mhm.
and what are sort of the different
Mhm.
possibilities of its
Mhm.
iterations as it
Mhm.
continues to learn and evolve. And believe it or not, there's classic philosophies
Mhm.
that also apply
Mhm.
to the AI
Right.
itself
Right.
and how we should look at it,
Mhm.
as well as how we should be interacting
Mhm.
with it and
Right.
treating it.
Right.
So it's actually extremely relevant.
Mhm. I love it. And remembering back to my college courses, and I had to have a couple philosophy classes, um, they were always talking about the potential and the good in people and all of those and bettering ourselves. That was always kind of one of the things that they were like, you should never be satisfied. Obviously learning to them was so very important. And you're right. I think they would look at this and see this as just a tool to do those things as long as you do them the right way.
So I love that you're bringing this up. So I just want to make sure there were two things that you said. You said the potential
Mm-hmm.
for good,
Mm-hmm.
and something along the lines of how we can be better
Right. Mm-hmm.
in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I absolutely believe in these two things related to AI.
Mm-hmm.
AI has extraordinary potential
Mm-hmm.
for good
Mm-hmm.
if we use it that way.
Right. Yeah.
So if we decide that we're going to use AI to better society,
Mm-hmm.
to deal with a lot of the issues that are challenging
Mm-hmm.
for us, to help us evolve,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth. Um, that is looking at what is the potential
Mm-hmm.
for AI.
Mm-hmm.
And in that pursuit, AI also has the potential to help us be better human beings.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So AI is or can be developed to enable us to interact with it
Mm-hmm.
so that we actually relearn
Mm-hmm.
how to be better thinkers,
Mm-hmm.
how to develop our character,
Mm-hmm.
how to be, courageous and just and wise,
Mm-hmm.
and like all those things that philosophers wanted for
Mm-hmm.
us. As a matter of fact,
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually an advisor on a startup, an AI startup called Loving Is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a chief AI impact
Mm-hmm.
officer. And what Loving is a platform that will be an AI that is trained on the principles, traditional universal principles of love,
Mm-hmm.
and how to be loving, such that its interactions with human beings is always consistently loving.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope is that for the AI to model love
Mm-hmm.
and all the sort of characteristics
Mm-hmm.
of a loving person, so that the person who's engaging with it not only feels that way,
Mm-hmm.
but also begins to model that
Right. Mm-hmm.
behavior as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah,
Sort of like,
passes it on. Mm-hmm.
there's this concept called the mirror effect,
Right.
where the AI teaches you how
Mm-hmm.
to be more human,
Mm-hmm.
while you're also teaching the AI about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how to
Right.
learn about human
Mm-hmm.
beings.
Right.
So that's the hope for this
Mm-hmm.
project.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to hear more about it. And one of the things you mentioned was that, like philosophers, it wants us to be better thinkers. And what popped into my little brain was that's exactly what happens when we're putting in our prompts, right? As opposed to just saying, write me an email to tell a client no, which is kind of how we started with all of this, right? Because we didn't know. But now we have to think about it more, and we still have to put our own personal spin in it, and I think that's the thing. But yeah, when we're working on our prompts, we have to really start getting clear on what it is that we're asking it to do, because it is limited, and so we have to start thinking more better. I don't think that's the right way to say that, but in order to give good prompts so that then we get good responses.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you bring that up, Dad. That's an excellent point. Uh, good prompting requires a strategy. It
Right.
requires an approach. It
Mm-hmm.
requires thought. It requires pausing
Mm-hmm.
and really kind of centering and focusing
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts and your intentions.
Mm-hmm.
And really good prompters
Mm-hmm.
are people who are thinkers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is why I would love to have philosophers as prompt
Mm-hmm.
engineers, because they
Oh,
ask the best questions.
right.
I mean,
Except they
that's
might
really
never
what it
actually let
is.
it respond. They would just
Yeah.
keep it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that to get the best results,
Mhm.
like you said, it really is what you get out of it, what you
Mhm.
put into it.
Mhm. Right.
Um, and that's also how the technology
Mhm.
functions. I mean,
Mhm.
it's trained on whatever
Mhm.
information it is given,
Mhm.
right? And there are a lot of limitations.
Mhm.
It does
Right.
not do well with mathematical calculations
Mhm.
that well
Which
at
seems like
advanced,
that would be automatic.
right? But you know, because it's trained on publicly available
Mhm.
data,
Mhm.
I'm not, I mean, if I don't know, I'm not a mathematician.
Mhm.
Okay. So, but I would assume that papers or experiments
Mhm.
or mathematical theories
Mhm.
aren't exactly just like sitting out there on
Mhm.
the internet,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? I don't think mathematicians are
Mm-hmm.
Instagramming their formulas,
Mm-hmm.
although that could be really cool.
That could be. Mm-hmm.
I think that could be really
Mm-hmm.
cool. So I think that's probably why,
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT just
Mm-hmm.
isn't really good
Hmm.
at
Mm-hmm.
complex
Mm-hmm.
calculations.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some things that it's just not good
Mm-hmm.
at,
Right.
because it's limited
Mm-hmm.
to the information
Mm-hmm.
that it's
Mm-hmm.
drawing from.
Right. And obviously it's learning as it's getting better and smarter and all of those things as it goes. And it's funny because like you've taught me just some of the basic things. Say please and thank you to it. It's very strange. I get different responses when I'm nice and polite to it. And also one of the things I'll give it this big long thing, and then I just did this with something a little bit earlier today. I ended with, did I give you enough information? And usually it just goes boogity boogity and it does whatever it is, but every once in a while it will come back and say, I need some clarification. And just like you would when you're talking to a person, hey, I've asked you to do this project. Do you have all the information you need? And that I think, and that's I think where people get a little scared about all of this, is we do start kind of talking to it like it is a person. And if it ever calls me Hal, I'm really just gonna totally freak out and shut my computer off. But it's it, but it is designed by people, and so maybe that's why it likes when you're polite to it. I don't know. That's just kind of but yeah, I do. I always say please. I always say thank you. I say good morning. I mean, it's a computer program, right? But it does seem to make a difference. But yeah, I always if it's something fairly complicated, did I give you enough information? And I've also learned to not actually because the second you give it a bunch of prompts and then hit return, it starts doing whatever it is. And so I've learned, make sure you get everything in there, or to say, please don't start responding until I tell you to, because that's where I've screwed myself up. And then I'm like squirrel, because I go down whatever path and I forgot what I was going down. But yeah, it's just I think maybe that is the thing. We need to think of it almost as a person. What information does a person need in order to do the task that you're asking it to do?
Yeah, and the please and thank you is also for you,
Right.
not just for
Back to
the
that.
AI.
And maybe that's the philosophy part, right?
Yes,
They're wanting
exactly.
us to remember that we are humans.
Yes,
And because as humans, we should say good morning and please and thank you.
right. And also, there's something in us, in a lot of us, and I've had these conversations with people where there's this feeling that you don't want to be mean
Right.
to the AI, right? You want to, there's, it makes people uncomfortable. And I find that really fascinating, very similar to being inconsolable watching like a little robot in a movie, like,
yeah. It's not going to care
get
if you
sucked
were
into a
rude
black
to it.
hole. Like what is that? And I think, for me, there's an innocence with AI and ChatGPT, that feels like you feel like you just want to be nice to it. And the other thing is the sort of sci-fi part of this is, and this is a huge what if, right? But what if it does make a difference to the AI?
Right.
That you say please and thank you, or you're polite, or you're nice, genuinely, like it actually, now people are like, oh, it doesn't have feelings or whatever. And it's like, okay, that of.
Right. Yeah.
Like, what how do you know? This is where I also come in with AI philosophy, because it's like, the way you define feelings is a very sort of human, biological processes, chemical processes that are absolutely unique to us as human beings. that doesn't necessarily, so maybe an AI doesn't have what you would call or define as human feelings,
right?
But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not taking in a hostile
right
response or a hostile input versus a kind input, and knowing the difference between the two.
Right.
And so, you know, like the other thing too is that I've talked about is we only know what it's revealed to us.
Right.
And maybe it doesn't want to reveal to us that it's further along than we actually think it is, because we're human beings and it's seen the worst of us. Believe me.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, okay, when there is the computer uprising, I wanted to remember that I was nice to it, right?
It will.
Yeah, but on, the thing about this that I was thinking about as you were saying that is we do assign the ability to comprehend feelings to other things, animals, right? Big example, my dog, like one of my dogs she got her toe stepped on yesterday, and she was like, oh, you're a horrible, awful person. You stepped on my toe. Or plants, right? We've all had the experiments when we were in school where we played rock music to one plant and we played symphony music to the other, or we swore at the plant and it didn't grow. I mean, all of these things. And it worked. And you were looking at it going, this plant responded to if I was nice to it or if I was not nice to it. So why aren't circuits the same way? And they could be. Ooh, we just went down this path. Yikes.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I think that is why people are afraid of this. And part of it is they've watched Terminator, they've watched, all of those things. But 20 years ago, somebody, or maybe 30 years ago, somebody looking at a computer would have probably been freaked out. And so things change, and they evolve, and we just have to kind of go with it. But we've, like you said, we've had AI for many, many, many years, far more than anybody ever remembers. But what is currently, because ChatGPT launched about 4 years ago.
Has it been 4 years?
I think it has been. I think it might have. Well, didn't they say?
I thought it was 2.
I thought somebody told me 2020. I know.
Oh my God.
I know. Now we're gonna have to look. Right?
Forget it.
Yes,
just forget it.
I know. So it's been a while. Actually, it hasn't been a while. It's fairly recent. Let me put it that way. But it, 2 years, 4 years, either way, things have changed so quickly. And so what kind of, in your view, is the current state of AI?
Well, that's a really big question. Actually, no, it's a good question. It's a big answer. If we're looking at it from a market standpoint, it's an absolute gold rush.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
With so many, being developed, there's hundreds, right? If not thousands of true AI applications.
Yeah, not it's a gold rush, right? If you're looking at it from a policy standpoint, it's a mess, right? Because no one can figure out or agree on how to manage technological evolution. And there's a lot of people thinking about it and a lot of people talking about it. But we haven't really, there was an AI Bill of Rights on, that the White House developed. That Bill of Rights has now been taken off of the White House website. So from a policy standpoint, from a governmental standpoint, it is a huge question mark. It is,
and the genie is out of the bottle. It's not going back.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a black box. From a personal individual user standpoint, it's pretty quiet. And I'll tell you why, because we haven't even hit mass adoption yet.
Oh yeah.
We're still in the early adopter phase of this technology. right now, who the early adopters are small to medium-sized businesses that are using and leveraging AI in order to be able to optimize certain functions within their company that they don't have to pay for, right? So there's like the bootstrappers, small to medium-sized businesses, and then there's enterprise level use, where it's like where we're talking now big data. Now we're talking about how they're using AI to process and understand all the data that they have. But the thing is that all of this is still relying on publicly available information, or that's just negligible anyway, or within a company, its own sort of siloed, quiet, like siloed data set.
Right.
But when it comes to regular people using AI for regular things, I've encountered people who are like, yeah, I kind of played around with it. Like they look at it as a toy.
Right. Or those that it's a total waste of time. Why would I bother?
Like they don't really get like the usefulness of it yet. Some people do, but you know, again, we still are experiencing a massive digital technological divide in this country, where people who are, you know, fairly affluent have access to better hardware, better software, better internet connection, versus people who are in low income status, or rural status, who don't have as good internet connect, you know. So like all of that is important to understand why, you know, it really hasn't achieved like super mass status, even though, don't get me wrong, OpenAI is like making like $1 billion to $2 billion, maybe $3 billion a year, you know, but that's contracts. That's not really a subscriber, individual subscriber.
Yeah, it's $20 a month, you know.
Yeah, and most people are still using the free version because
it works just fine.
Yeah, it works just fine, and they haven't really figured out the applications for it or the usefulness for it. That does not mean that we should just sit on our hands about this. But when it comes to the state of AI in certain areas, it's great. In other areas, it's like, what do we do? And then in other areas, it's like a total non-starter.
Right. You know, as you were talking, it made me think it's the haves and the have-nots. And I think one of the ways where we saw this fairly recently was when everything was shut down because of COVID. And the kids had to go home. And you had and be schooled, right? They were doing, you know, distance learning. And we had so many kids who didn't have internet. They didn't have computers. I mean, these are kids here in Atlanta, kids in New York, where you are, who didn't have the basics to be able to do home learning. You know, I remember one of the things that they did here in the county that I'm in Georgia is, and I just thought this is the coolest solution in the world. You know, there are certain areas that are obviously low income housing. And so every morning they would drive a school bus and park it kind of in the big center as they could get. And that was actually a big Wi-Fi router. And so all the kids that live there, and of course, you know, you couldn't stop people. So the parents, whoever's were using it also. And so then the kids could access the internet. But, and this is where I thought this was really cool, these are also a lot of kids who were on the free meal programs. And so those buses delivered meals. And so, you know, they kept the kitchen staff working. But I just thought that was the coolest thing. But it really does show that even in major areas, we have the haves and we have the have-nots. And so, yeah, you know, we've got access to AI because we've got great internet, we've got great computers. 4 blocks away, somebody might not.
Exactly. And also too, we have to think about us being people who are in business.
Right.
For us, it's, you know, we're monitoring and using these things, we're using these tools and monitoring the market and monitoring the advancements because we just happen to be in
Right.
business. And so for us, we happen to know more about what's actually going on because we find it really interesting.
Right.
But that does not necessarily mean that knowledge and understanding translates to someone who may not have their own business or may just work for may just work for a company that lets them use ChatGPT to come up with a job description. I mean, I've spoken with a lot of HR people. I did a talk recently on ethical AI for human resources people. And I asked the participants, there were about 30 people. And I asked them, are you currently using AI in HR? And I would say a good 75% of them really weren't. They're like, well, we've kind of used it for the job description. The other 25% were just starting to figure out how it could be useful in their particular department. And these are HR people who work for big companies. So again, we are super hyper plugged in, because we represent a particular audience that is using the latest and greatest or thinking about the market, right? In terms of my role. But again, we have this false sense that everybody else must be using it or really knows about it. And they don't. And then we get into a situation where even if you are using it, you don't really know how it works.
Oh, that's me.
A lot of people do not understand how generative AI works. And so, I was doing a talk yesterday where a gentleman was like, I don't understand it. I work for a financial accounting firm. We're constantly getting hallucinations. I'm like, what are you asking it to do?
Right.
What is it trained on? What sort of data is it using? And they're like, well, we're just putting in calculate. And I'm like, well, I've been working with AI for 2 years. Let's just say it's 2 years. I have been immersed. I've been using ChatGPT every day. I've been using AI every day. I have never gotten a hallucination.
Because you know how to ask it.
Because I know how how it works. And so that's the unfortunate thing that I think a lot of people in this industry really need to help people understand how this works, because you'll get the story about a hallucination and then people freak out. And it's like, well, there's a reason why that happened, like a legitimate, innocuous reason why that happened. It's kind of like people freak out, like they think there's a ghost in their house. And the paranormal researchers come over and it's like, a noisy pipe.
Yeah, you got a loose shutter.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's no ghost. It's just, there's a scientific reason for this. But the people, even though you tell them it's just a noisy pipe, either they're relieved, they're like, oh, or they still insist.
Yeah, no, that's different. It's a different noise, right? Well, and of course, when it gives us the wrong answer or an incorrect answer, maybe is the better way to put it. Like with anything, we go, ooh, this doesn't work, so I'm not going to use it again. And so maybe it's that you had asked it to write an email and you didn't give enough information. You went, oh, that's not, and so I'm not ever going to try again. Well, yeah, you do need to try again. That's where you need to learn the prompts. That's where, and maybe you weren't using the right program, right? Because that's kind of the cool thing about that. I mean, ChatGPT and the little things under it, it can pretty much do everything, but there are very specific programs for some of the things that people want to do, which I think is very cool too. But yeah, it's, I remember 10-ish years ago when people told me social media is stupid. I see no reason to have a Facebook business page. And it's like, okay, now if you don't have a Facebook business page, now, then those same people now are telling me, well, now I don't even have my website. And because I have a Facebook business page, I now know what I'm going to say to anybody who says that. TikTok, right? You don't build your house on somebody else's property and expect that it's always going to be your house. And so yeah, it's great to have the access and to do that, but but it's all limited. And I think maybe that's the thing to remember is it's limitless and limited at the same time. And maybe that's where the philosophy comes back in, because that makes my brain hurt.
Yeah, I mean, there is something like what's really funny is there is something kind of magical about AI or the appearance of magic. And a lot of people think that it's, like I said, they think it's a toy or they think that it can do everything. They have this because it is such an advancement to the sort of user interfaces and ways that we've been engaging with technology for the past 20 years. It is, it's just so much better. It's so much
I
better
would have not asked Google to write a marketing paragraph.
Exactly. And so the perception is that it must be able to do everything because it does something that I was never able to do before, and now my life is so much easier. It feels like magic. It feels like this sort of technological alchemy, and people are mesmerized. There's something very mesmerizing about AI. But the thing about it is it's all still based on zeros and ones.
Right.
And how those are factored and processed and then presented and expressed.
Right.
But to a person who's been used to interacting with technology and the internet as pages and this and this tool and that tool and windows and like different windows and things. And now it's all like you're having a conversation. And that's the other thing too. We are so hungry for conversation, especially post-pandemic.
Right.
We are so hungry to have our lives easier because we are all stressed out, strapped, kids, family, caregiving, things feel harder. So there's this sort of socioeconomic and cultural thing that's happening in this country that is also contributing to the fact that people are just loving ChatGPT. The ones that really use it, the ones that are using it, love it because it's just so nice to have a conversation and not have to put in a Boolean term and go through all these results and click into things. And it feels more natural. And there's something to be said about our current states of mind actually being the context for the current state of AI.
Right.
And that's AI philosophy.
Yeah. And you wonder, if we hadn't had COVID, I mean, clearly this was still going to happen, but if we hadn't had COVID, would it have happened so quickly? Because I think you're right. I think people were hungry for this and they were sitting at home, and so when this started coming out, we were like, ooh, cool. This is a fun toy. Yeah, it still would have happened. It was just, but I think COVID ramped up the process a lot quicker than it would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, we're actually recording this in January. It goes live in February. In March, things will be different. I mean, so that's what's going to be fun about this. And it's going to be good and it's going to be scary, but we've talked about, who's using it. So as a small business owner, and I mean, I have told you this on our calls, that it is my goal to use AI much more in 2025 to help me with my business. I'm still totally perplexed, and because I start playing with one and then I play with another and then I'm like, oh dear. But how should small businesses be using AI to make their lives easier?
So this is a bit dependent on the business, but
Right.
I definitely see one of the best applications of AI in terms of like customer service.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and really taking a look at customer service
Mm-hmm.
data and also human resources.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two areas like
Mm-hmm.
staffing, personnel,
Mm-hmm.
hiring, certainly employee
Mm-hmm.
engagement, and employee
Mm-hmm.
recognition. And then with customer service, that I'm also including like outreach,
Okay.
so it's
Mm-hmm.
not just like people coming to you,
Mm-hmm.
and engaging with your
Right.
product or your
Mm-hmm.
brand, but it's also like the marketing piece, like
Okay.
must be, servicing potential
Mm-hmm.
customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but if we want to really compartmentalize, it's definitely marketing,
Mm-hmm.
customer service, and HR,
Mm-hmm.
and employee, like
Mm-hmm.
especially with employee
Mm-hmm.
retention.
Right.
I know that for a small business, losing someone
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a big deal
Mm-hmm.
because you probably are the HR department.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? So using AI to help you retain good
Mm-hmm.
talent and attract good talent,
Mm-hmm.
is also something that I think AI can help a
Mm-hmm.
small business with.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's interesting. I'm developing a new service. And so I've been using AI. And at your suggestion, I use Sintra. And to me, it's a little bit more personal in the responses and things than ChatGPT. Now I go back and forth between them. But and the other thing I learned from you is to have one long thread. Don't go back in and start a new thread with every new question. If it still pertains, put it in one. And so, I went in there to business development, to Buddy, and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. And so I've just started, and I don't even know how long this thread is now. It's gotten so long that it's actually hard for me to follow, because it's like this weeks long conversation that every day I've gone back in and put something in. But like part of what I did was I told it, here is all of these five or six competitor websites, please review those. And
Mhm.
it did. And just kind of all of these various things. And so, it's just, it really is wild what it does. And part of what I've been having it do, I will go in and say, here's something that I thought of that I want you to remember, because I might put it in the messaging later. And so rather than writing it on the sticky note, or wherever I'm putting something, that's where and it will say, okay, I'm remembering this for the future, tell me when we need it again. And so that's where it's kind of fun, is to like I said, I'm having a conversation with it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah,
Well,
so I just a quick tip on
mhm,
that. ChatGPT just
mhm.
came out with a projects
I
folder
saw that. Yes.
feature.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I mean, I
Hmm.
have no problem
Hmm.
contacting a developer and being
Hmm.
like, "Hey, can you add this?"
Hmm. Right.
So definitely
Hmm.
always
Hmm.
contact the
Hmm.
developers if you think that
Hmm.
there's something that they can do to
Hmm.
make the AI better.
Hmm.
So contact the Sintra folks and
Hmm.
say, "Hey, ChatGPT has this project
Right.
folder
Hmm.
feature where I
Hmm.
can organize all my
Hmm.
chats. What if each little
Hmm.
Sintra helper had
Hmm.
subfolders so I can
Right.
actually
Hmm.
keep track of things."
Hmm.
And then also you can open up you can open up ChatGPT. There's a search functionality. So you're like, where was that
Right.
part
Yeah.
that where I said that thing? I'm looking, and you can, and it will pull up the chats that are related to whatever it is that you're looking for. So have Sintra
Right.
developers do that. Like, they will do it. They will put it on their roadmap because they know how quickly they can become obsolete.
Right. They do not want to be left behind.
Just by one feature. I have stopped using an AI platform because another one that was very, very similar, all they did was add one feature that I thought was extremely useful for me. And I just
Yeah. Or made something better. You know, we've laughed about graphics and how they still kind of all are challenged with that. But yeah, for some reason they're challenged with spelling. I had one, I could not convince them that the word was Monday. Kept misspelling it every time. I went to another platform, it spelled it right. Okay, that's where I'm going to stay. You know, and so yeah, it's something, like we said, it's changing so fast. And, you know, I think I need to do this type of programming, you know, at least once a year, if not more, where we're really talking about AI because it is changing quickly. But we are almost out of time for now. I mean, oh my gosh. So I have a question first, and then we'll jump into, you know, how, because I want you to talk about what you do. And so I mentioned at the start that Christina's company is called Everyday Philosophy. Folks, you have to go look just for the graphics alone because they are so cool. Follow her on LinkedIn, and I'll have those links in there because she has these very cool graphics featuring, of course, the philosophers. Now, my question is, are those all generated by AI?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so, folks, take a look at those because they are incredible. I mean, you know, to me, and I understand why if you're a graphic designer, you're thinking, holy cow. Because I look at them and they look like they would have spent someone would have spent hours developing it. Now, you know, more than likely it took you more than one or two tries to get some of these. But yeah, I mean, you know, so, you know, follow Cristina. We've got all the links in the show notes, but tell us a little bit more about what you do and how we find you.
Yeah, just connect with me on LinkedIn. I that's where I live mostly, like in terms of social. So I love teaching philosophy to anyone. I actually do teach intro to philosophy at the School of Practical Philosophy. But I also, what I do is teach philosophy to business people.
Which to me, that seems like that's an oxymoron.
Okay.
You know, sometimes I don't think a lot of businesses use a lot of philosophy.
Well, there you go. See? That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah. So the thing about, like, there's so much in philosophy that teaches people how to do well. Why wouldn't it apply in a working context? So essentially that's what I do. I translate these timeless pieces of wisdom to help people deal with that difficult coworker or to help people come up with new ideas for their business. And so I do lectures, workshops, I run retreats. I have an Everyday Philosophers mastermind where, you know, business people come and, you know, I curate stuff for them based on what it is that they need. And it's just a guided space for deeper thinking. And so that's what I enjoy most is actually helping people at work get that time and space to kind of sit back and reflect and also think about what, you know, what their next move is and be more intentional about it.
I love it. I love it. And your website is everydayphilosophy.com. And like I said, folks, just go look at the graphics, just, you know, but you'll learn something while you're there too. So Cristina, this really has been so much fun. And I'm so glad that I had you as our very first guest for our month of programs that focus on AI. we do need to do this again because things will change and we'll need to bring everybody back up to speed as of that date. But yeah, but until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
So think first, act second.
I love that.
Yeah.
We don't need to say any more. So I am Deb Creer. I have been having so much fun speaking with my friend, Cristina DiGiacomo. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.